I'm Anne-Marie Pearman, and today I'm joined by Philip Frising. He's a technical leader, and he recently, over the last few years, came across the discovery that it is now where we receive our joy, happiness and creativity. And along with Niklas Ölmestrand, he developed a podcast and a website, and I'm going to try and do the Swedish pronunciation, and I hope I do it justice. I did have a quick lesson with Philip, but I don't know. Lyckligare.NU, which is translated into Happier Now in English. So welcome, Philip. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Anne-Marie, and thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you.
So first question is, how did you come across the 3 principles, and did it impact your life or change your life in any way afterwards in a positive way?
Yeah. Okay, so I was thinking about that a little bit before, because I had a feeling that you would ask me that question. So from one perspective, nothing has changed really. I mean, I have the same family as I had before. I live in the same place here in Sweden. I have the same 2 dogs that I had before. I do the same work in IT business. I run the same IT project. And I even run the same kind of car nowadays as I did before. But if I change the perspective, if I zoom in or zoom out, I don't know which direction, everything is different. Perhaps not the things, but the experience of life is totally different nowadays. Previously, life could be really like a struggle, like being in a hamster wheel all the time. You know, the week starts on Monday, and then you have to get up and get the kids ready and get them to kindergarten and school and all of that, and you have to go to work and, you know, do all the work and then go home and pick up the kids and everything. And then, you know, it just went on and on and on, it felt like. So it never seemed to be enough time. And I always seem to be looking towards the next thing to do and the next. And there was always something to do and another thing to do. And I think it was pretty exactly 4 years ago. I had a friend who I worked really tightly with. We did the same kind of work, and suddenly one day he didn't come to work because he had got a heart attack the day before at the night. And but that really got me sort of out of balance, and I started to think, well, what are we really doing here? I mean, we were living kind of the same kind of life and working from the same kind of stress level and so on in that hamster wheel. So a couple of weeks later, I was browsing on the phone, trying to find some new audiobook, and suddenly I just came across a book that was about the 3 principles in Swedish, and it was 2 guys, Thomas and Dennis, that operate in the southern of Sweden, that had recorded that audiobook. And I started to listen to it, and I felt like, well, something sounds true here, and it sounds quite simple. There isn't so much to do. You know, it's not like 7 habits of successful people, really thick book and lots of things to process. This seemed easier. So I started to listen more to their work and their podcasts that had a couple of hundreds of episodes, but I didn't really get it, and I kept listening and I kept listening, and some periods I didn't listen so much. And then about 2 years later, I sort of gave up and thought that, well, I'm never going to get this by just listening to these guys. So I decided to sign up for a coaching course in the 3 principles with Thomas and Dennis. And at that time, I had no intention of doing any kind of work or any kind of sharing in this understanding. I just wanted to really understand it, and because I was really bummed out that it was so hard to grasp. And as always, when I decide on something, I thought, well, now I need to do some more preparing, so I'm prepared for that course. So I started to listening more, and perhaps a little bit more openly than I had done before. And I thought at some moment that I heard something, but I couldn't really understand it. And then the day came when I was supposed to drive down to the southern of Sweden. And I went out here in front of my house, closed the door, put the bag in the car, and then I sat down in the car in front of a driving wheel, and suddenly it was so calm, and it was so peaceful, and it was really, really strange. And I really didn't get that, but I had sort of the clarity, at least, to not question it. So I just drove away and had one of the most best car drives I have ever had, because it was so peaceful, and I listened to good music and some pod episodes on my way. So at that point, I was probably ready to see something new, and when I attended the coaching course, I fell in more into this peaceful feeling, and could experience what the principles really are about from my perspective. It's not about remembering the words, but experiencing a different way of using your mind, or living life. So after that weekend there, then I could suddenly see the truth in what they were saying, and I also started to listening to all kinds of other people in the 3 principles. For some reason, I didn't do that before, and I don't know why, but I wasn't probably ready to do that. So after that, I read books, and I even heard stuff in music and in in movies that was supposed to be like a comedy, and there was some Indian guru, and I was like, oh, he's talking the truth here. It's really interesting. So life kind of shifted a little by little, and I haven't had like a major insight, and then everything was different, but life felt different, like something was twisted inside, or turned around or something. And it keeps happening, like every week or every day, even sometimes. So what I found during this period, and what I have been discovering more deeply is really what Sydney Banks is talking about in his early material. I listened to the recording called Change Your Mind yesterday, and that is one of my favorite recordings. And it so resonates with me when he is talking about the joy and the sheer joy of just being alive. And I really enjoy that. And of course, all materials are wonderful to listen to, but specifically the ones in the beginning is those that are closest to my heart. So for me, the joy of being alive is like when I get out of my thinking, when I'm not up in my head, when I'm not, really working it, I can just relax into this background that we have, the background of life. And previously I didn't really notice it, or if I noticed it, it was always confused with something that happened outside. Like I was in a nice place, or I had done something specific, and so on. But now I can see it's always there. It's always available, and it's the best thing ever, and it isn't even a thing. And I have also listened to many other people, not only those that are connected to the three principles or Sydney Banks' teachings. So, for example, Eckhart Tolle and Anita Moorjani and even Wayne Dyer and Mooji have all been very important in my growth, or in my way of uncovering all the stuff that I had learned previously. And it's really not about listening to the words and comparing, he's saying like that and she's saying like that. For me, it's the same way as I listen to music. I listen for a feeling and relax into that feeling, and just to tune into that joy of being alive, and noticing that I don't have to pay attention to everything that comes up in the foreground or in my mind. I can stay in that background. And if I do it, long enough or deep enough, it sort of comes forward more and becomes the foreground of life, of my experience. I remember earlier, previously to this understanding, when it was bedtime for my kids. I have two kids now, they're 5 and 9. So previously my son, he was 2 or 3 before this, let's say that. And it was always such a struggle to get him to bed, to get the teeth brushed and read the bedtime story. Because I was always in the next moment. I was always, well, when we have brushed the teeth, then we're going to read the bedtime story. And when I was reading the bedtime story, first of all, I was almost falling asleep because, I was sort of slowing down. But I always had some kind of goal with it to go to the next moment. But nowadays it can be a really nice moment when we just stay in that moment together. So I mean, that's a huge difference, and kids can really feel when you want them to do something, or when you just are in that moment and see what happens, and then sort of go with the flow. In the place we live here, the forest is just outside my window here, and I often walk there with the dogs. And previously, I thought that forest was kind of annoying because it wasn't that well maintained. It wasn't looking like a park, but just wild things growing everywhere. But now, when I can more easily step out of my thinking and just being in that background, in that good feeling, it's really, really beautiful, and I really enjoy working there with the dogs and just being in the moment. And it's really funny because always I get some new ideas about what Niklas and I are going to talk about in our next podcast. So I have to bring up my phone and make some fast notes about it, or I solved some strange issue that I had in my work. So it's a really different experience and a very good place to go. And of course, it's not really sort of about the place, but it's more about the state of mind that I easily can fall into when I'm there. Yeah, I can go on and on, but
I was just going to ask, what was the inspiration for getting together with Niklas and coming up with the Happier.NOW podcast?
Yeah, so yeah, about a year ago, Niklas and I, we had both finished the coaching course that we went to, and we had also let's see, yeah, here it is. We had also been writing a book together with the other members of the course. So about a year ago, we sort of were back in our old lives, and the course was over, and I felt kind of lonely in this understanding in my little world. So well, I think I said to Niklas, maybe we could talk sometime. So we had a Friday, like 1 year and a couple of weeks ago. So we talked, and in the end of that, I said to Niklas, we should really do something together. And Niklas, he was really fast. I have never seen him so fast. So he said, well, we could do a podcast. And I said, yeah, we could. And last night I had to check my calendar, and I could see that 2.5 weeks after that meeting, we had published our first episode. And well, then it has just continued, and we have had different guests, and most of the time it's just me and Niklas doing it in Swedish, but we do some stuff in English as well. And we have had, for example, Carolina and Wayne with us. It was a really good episode. And now it's just it's fun, and often we get together each Friday. So it's a perfect end of the work week and the perfect beginning of the weekend to do that.
So do you have a plan when you do each podcast, the ones that you just do together? is it just a case of whatever comes to you in the moment?
You know, as I said, sometimes when I walk with my dogs, I think of something. Well, we can talk about that, and I usually write down a couple of bullets, and then it's just you know, we just talk from our heart and do what's right in the moment. And other occasions, Niklas comes up with some theme, and sometimes we just decide when we meet. So it's different. It isn't you know, very planned, but sometimes it's good to, you know, reflect before and have perhaps something new to talk about, or a different perspective.
And it's on all good podcast channels. Is it on YouTube as well, or is it just audio that you do?
Since I think it's since June, we also do it with video. So we put it on YouTube, so people can see it. And we have some people who prefer that, and some people prefer just listening to us. But you know, we don't take it too personal.
Has anybody got any comments or questions for Philip? I can see Niklas is there. He's Philip's co-host. I don't know if you've got anything you want to say. Is Three Principles well known in Sweden, or are you sort of pioneers with it? Oh, sorry, I've just seen Sander's got his hand up. I'll just ask this question, then ask Sander to ask his question. Are you pioneers for Sweden for the Three Principles, or has it been around a while?
It's been around a while. Thomas and Dennis, who we did the coaching course with, they have probably had their podcast for about 5 years, I think, something like that. And there's also yeah, quite many people nowadays that you know, talk about the Three Principles and do coaching and so on. But I think we have found our way of doing it, and Niklas and I, we are from a background where, you know, we were supposed to be happy, and we've had quite successful lives in many different ways. But it was more, you know, of a struggle to get there, and many other people, they have, you know, different angles into this understanding. Perhaps had a, you know, difficulties with the other things in life and so on. And some people are more interested in the, you know, in psychology and so on. Well, we try to talk about what's relevant for us, about the joy of being, and also the connection with the work we do as leaders, and yeah, and so on.
Sander, did you have something you wanted to say or ask?
Yes, thank you, Anne-Marie. I noted down Philip, when you mentioned a recording. It's basically just a wee question about a recording that you mentioned. Was it a Sydney Banks recording called Change Your Mind or something? I'm always interested to hear new things, so and I hadn't heard of that one, so I thought I would ask.
Yeah, it's Sydney Banks, Change Your Mind, and I think it's from 77 or 78. So it's quite old, but it feels really fresh, because it's you know, when I think the experience for Sydney Banks was quite fresh, and it was before you know, it became more, you know, connected to psychology, and before he tried to, you know, make psychology into a science and so on. So I really like the energy that I feel when I listen to those old recordings, and he speaks in a different way and with different words, and they're more like biblical references or references to other words that, well, previously I would just think that it would be really weird, but now I can see what he's pointing to, and especially where he's pointing from the state of mind that he is when he's talking about it.
And is that recording publicly available?
It is available, and if you send me a message, I can probably provide some kind of link to it.
Okay.
When you came across the 3 principles, Philip, did it, do people in your, I don't know, family or in your circle notice a change in you at all, or did they think you seemed happier or more at peace or anything?
Well, it's always, you know, difficult to know what other people think and so on. But I think in the beginning, most people didn't see anything different because, you know, they were up in their heads, and when they were, you know, in that place, it was very easy for me to sort of move to the same place. But then as time has passed by, and well, it doesn't have anything to do with time really, but well, yeah, time is a factor in this world anyhow. I think most people that I meet and spend some time with have seen a difference, and some have seen a bigger difference, and I've got curious and listened to the work that Niklas and I do, and so on. Yeah. So some people that were really, you know, challenging before can be really easy to do stuff with now, and also the other way around. So, yeah. And I think probably the kids are the ones that are most easily picking up the difference, but perhaps they can't, you know, articulate it in that way, but they can really sense it.
I remember being on a Zoom with David Banks once, who's Sydney Banks' son, and it struck me that when we talk about insight, some people feel like they have to have a massive insight or a massive shift, and they almost feel disappointed if they haven't. One thing that he said that struck me was you can have an insight and not even know you've had an insight, but other people wouldn't see the change in you. So that's where that question came from. It just that thought in my head. I thought, oh, I wonder. But like you said, people don't always say, do they? So.
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes you know that you heard something, but you don't know what you heard, but you can feel sort of a shift happening. So that's really interesting, and that's what I love about Wayne Dyer as well. I love his biography. What's it called? I can see clearly. I can see clearly now. I really enjoy that book, and I don't know what he's saying, but there's such a nice feeling to that book, and I could feel something happening while listening to that.
I think that's the funny thing with the 3 principles. When you're first into it, I think because we're so conditioned to intellectualize everything as a human way we're brought up and the way we're educated and everything like that, that it feels weird when you it's hard to accept that you've changed, but you don't even know why you've changed, and you can't explain it. So you just know there's been a shift in the way you're thinking, but you don't know why, and you're wanting to rationalize it and you're wanting to understand it. But just letting go of all that sort of thought, isn't it? And just letting it be and letting it happen, be natural flow.
Yeah, and you know, my personality is still well, let's say it like this. Philip still don't like certain situations and so on. I really don't like you know, hospitals and all of that. But well, now it's like half a year ago I had an accident and I had to go with an ambulance to the hospital, and that was really not what Philip wanted. But the funny thing was that I could still be okay with that. The deeper when I was in the background, I could still be in a really good feeling, even though the circumstances were really strange and something that I wouldn't appreciate at all before. And you know, even though for example, when I went to the hospital and there were several hours of just waiting and no one told me anything and so on, my person was kind of frustrated about that. But I didn't have to, you know, be in that space. I could be in that peaceful space anyway. And that is so what do you say, that is so hopeful, and to have that with you in any situation that you go to. And often when you know, when I'm challenged in a way that probably was supposed to be difficult, it can get easy when you fall out of that you know, conditional thinking that you had before. You can just accept what is and not think about what it should be. But you can't think your way to understand that.
By yourself in knots, trying to think yourself into it, can't you? Has anybody else got any questions or comments for Philip? Or otherwise I might wrap it up here, because it feels like a nice, unless Philip's got anything else he'd like to add, feels like a nice end, unless anyone's got any questions or comments. No, we've had somebody just join a few minutes ago.
Yeah. Well, I can just say perhaps a couple of words about the, you know, work and work life.
Yeah, sure.
I can see now that, you know, many people that I meet is coming sort of from a place of being stressed and having fear about certain things, and also are you know, driven from a place of lack and so on. And that is a, you know, a difficult place of working from. But it's so hopeful that, you know, when we understand how our mind works, and when we can be in this background where we have all the creativity, and then we can, you know, go into our thinking and perhaps analyze something that we have to do intellectually to understand it. And when we can shift, you know, back and forth between that, and also have this you know, spaciousness and the background with us when we work, then we can do fantastic things. But you know, when we're caught up in our thinking, we can do the exactly right implementation of something that is totally useless. And I guess everyone that has been working in IT or using some kind of IT thing can see that, you know, very clearly. So I think that is one of the areas that I would like to explore more. You know, not just being in well-being myself, but also to you know, incorporate it or playing around with it more in with work, and not no, not just 3 principles work, but also working in general.
So do you have any plans to train out 3 principles into the working community then?
I have no, you know, articulated plans, but of course there is what do you say? It would be really fun to do that, and but we will see what happens and what yeah, what happens in life and what's possible.
It's an aspiration.
Yeah.
So watch this space sort of thing.
Mm.
Anything else from anybody? Okay, if there's nothing else from Philip or anybody else, I will wrap it up there and just say I'll be putting this, or Maria, are you about to unmute yourself? Maybe not. It looked like she was just about to unmute herself. So, oh, she just put a big love heart. Thank you for that. Thanks for the love heart. Love you too. So yes, so this will be on YouTube along with the link to Philip's Happier.NOW, or can you say the Norwegian? Not all Norwegian, sorry, Swedish. I'm getting the wrong country.
Yeah. It's really close by, so no worries. It's called Lyckligare.NU, and that is Happier.NOW. And it's not, you know, hee happy. It's more the deep sense of happiness that you can find.
I think that should be on your you should do an advert for it saying it's not the kind of happy. Oh dear. Anyway, really enjoyed that, Philip, and I've left with a really nice feeling. So you helped put me in a good feeling today. So thank you for that. Yeah. And I will be putting this on YouTube and with links to your Happier.NW website, or the Swedish pronunciation, which I won't try and do again. But thank you, Philip, and thanks everybody else who joined. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anne-Marie. It was a pleasure being with you.
Lovely seeing
you. Thank you, Philip.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.